I'd like to, first of all, look at leadership from the context of knowledge management practices in complex construction projects. I take the view that knowledge management is absolutely complex, and looking at that complexity in light of leadership makes it much more challenging. And I'm looking at this from the context of complex projects. I'll define leadership, and I'll define knowledge management and supply chains. Leadership for me, as you can see, it's how you influence somebody's behavior or actions, getting people to do something willingly and not coercing them. We have many leaders over the years who we claim to be leaders, but are they truly leaders? Knowledge itself, I think it's complex. I don't see knowledge as information. I see knowledge as things like experiences. We have knowledge in us. We have knowledge in repositories and processes. And this can be dynamic. Knowledge in us that allows us to do some work. How do we manage them? And how do we manage the creation of new knowledge? How do we exploit the knowledge? How do we share knowledge in complex systems and in supply chains where there are many people and where the projects are complex? What role has leadership got to play in this regard? I think it's important that we begin to make sense of some of these complexities. In typical organizations, there is the view that we develop a knowledge management strategy. We see knowledge as a long-term investment. We look at trust and respect and reciprocity for people to share knowledge. In projects that are temporary endeavors, there's no time to build trust, no time to look at the issue of trust and reciprocity. Projects are unique. They are temporary endeavors. They start, they finish. Amongst them, there are loose coupled of ties and relationships. Trust is swift, and there are informal networks. How do you manage knowledge, and how do you provide leadership in this very unstable environment? Complex projects are not linear, unlike organizations where you can bring your teams over a period of time. There are emergence issues, there are uncertain issues. The landscape is as if you are dancing and you are away from that scope. How do you manage uncertainty and knowledge, and how do you lead in that environment? Projects are led by project managers. They have responsibility, they have authority and accountability. But how can they articulate vision, which is often long, within a short period of time? We need them to be enthusiastic champions. They need to take a holistic view, but there is no time to do that. I take the view that if we are to create new knowledge, we need leadership to provide the right environment for that to take place. If we are to share and communicate and exploit knowledge, there's a role for leadership to influence people, to motivate and enthuse people as we do that. It is a challenge. In some of the research we've done over the last 10 years, we noticed that this is very, very difficult. And when you introduce the theories of leadership, whether it's the trade school or the behavioral or the contingency or transformational leadership, one of the things we keep finding is that change leadership is important. Why? Because project has an element of change. Everything is changing. The status quo is changing. We need to think about that. How do you lead in a changing environment, in a temporary environment? And how do you manage the knowledge utils and knowledge assets in this changing environment? Absolutely challenging and absolutely difficult. So it's this context that I'm very much interested in. And it's this context that our research is showing that we need to think of knowledge not only as a stock in repositories, in computers, in books, but as a flow that takes place amongst individuals that are in supply chains. And how do the knowledge, experiences, and competencies change as it flows through the supply chain? And what role has leadership got to play in making sure we exploit that? These are some of the attributes that we keep hearing, that a leader has to have vision, passion, honesty, trust, has to be curious, has to be dedicated, show charisma. And you see that in some of the earlier slide I had with all these kind of leaders that are known to be charismatic. In reality, there is a mismatch between what leadership tells us we should be doing and what's expected. For example, it's rare to find leaders who are prepared to be open and honest, but hey, they keep telling us you need to be honest and open. In circumstances that are very challenging, like complex projects, it's difficult to find that. I take the view that when we look at leadership, the context is absolutely key. We need to look at the leader himself or herself, the follower, are they willing to be led, the task, the environment, and the situation. And we need to look at issues like the priorities and the legitimacy and power the individual has. In projects, it's a bit different because there are triangulations of objectives, cost, time, quality. A project manager must deliver on that. And then you need to look at the other wider issues of the business pressures, let alone the issue of the style of leadership you may want to adopt. I take the view that in projects, the sharing culture is important. We need to link knowledge sharing to performance behaviors. This we don't do in projects. And we need to make sure that we create knowledge teams, incentivize them as well, and put in place other approaches to actually manage and share knowledge. In real life, people share knowledge through project meetings, through storytelling, which has not very well developed in construction, coaching, the use of quality circles, and the use of communities of practice, especially when you are trying to share very, very confidential kind of knowledge. So the issue of creating knowledge within a community of practice, those who share so many things in common and are willing to take those things forward in construction, I think absolutely key if we're trying to maximize the role that knowledge plays in productivity. Again, I take the view that leadership is absolutely important. In reflection, I think real challenges exist in effectively managing knowledge in project environments. And I also say mentoring, job rotation, coaching, the use of information technology is important, but above all, project leadership has a role to play in improving how we create an environment to maximize how we share knowledge for improvement. Thank you.